am covered in goosebumps. I have heard this 1,000 times, and the concept of artistry just, in fact, never leaves. He's not playing very loud in this room, right? Because he's not in this room. He's playing as if he were playing to microphones that were this far away to the piano. And that's what we're used to hearing those recordings. So it's, if you're in this room and I haven't done anything to the instrument, it has an entirely different sense. If I can get the slides back here for a second. So we made a recording of this in Glenn Gould's studio with his team. Gould died at age 50. And his team is still alive and there, his tuners, his technicians. And I sat at dinner the first time in great trepidation to meet them. And Lauren Tolk, you've seen him in Gould movies, said, John, if Glenn had had this technology, he would have used it in a second. And you know why? Because he could give a recital and sit in the back row and watch himself. So the album came out. I was presenting at the Glenn Gould Award banquet in April, and the chairman of the committee, Paul Hoffert, said, John, when your album came out, I went and got my original, and I got yours, and I sat in the studio, and I lined them up side by side, so that we both started at the same place, and I let it run. And he said, for 38 minutes, I sat there with my mouth open at what you guys had done. This was unbelievable. Now, I'm going to talk you through a little bit more what we did here, but one of them is we have to preserve every single thing that Gould does, every nuance, and that means the wrong notes too. So we leave the wrong notes in there, and let me give you an example of that. Here's, Gould tried to fix all these, but he left one in 1955. And it's in variation number 27. I'll just start it and stop it a couple times so you can hear the place, because you may have never noticed it in recording, but by God we did. It's the one that goes dun 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 dun, boom. So the beginning of the third measure, he brushes an E and an F together. Pardon my singing, I'm probably not in the key of G where I should be. But I'll just start it and we'll come back to that place, but I'll do a big watch here because you'll be able to see it. It's this one right here. I may have missed. Let's see if I got it. Nope, that's the one. Right there. Did you hear it? I don't mean to pick on Glenn, but these little things that you discover that are the imperfections are what tell us this is human. And yet, oddly, I'm all wrapped up in technology here. So you see all the paradoxes wrapped in conundrums. Let me just let this one play all the way through once, because he doesn't miss a note from there on out. Imagine what we're experiencing here through the wonder of technology. Did you ever think you'd sit in the room with Gould as he played again? It's just, I love it. Back to the slides for a second. Let me do one kind of technical slide here to tell you what we're doing. So we've got a process where we start from, again, the audio recordings, and I'll get to video in a minute because it's an interesting permutation on this. So the audio, we figure out what the sound waves look like, but gosh knows the notes aren't marked. If you look at a sound wave, it's got all the reflections in the room and every, birds flying by and the air conditioning system and all this kind of stuff. So it's a very elaborate process that we go through and look at kind of step by step. What were the pitches? How did the notes start? How were they pressed? How long were they held? How were they released? Where were the dampers? Where were the pedals? And kind of figure out this geometry and have millions of values for each of those things to kind of just select from. And what we end up with is files like you heard play. And these are in wonderful, gorgeous, high resolution. Unlike what Alex said, this is not a Disclavier. This is a Disclavier Pro. An entirely different model than the ones that he started with, and the Yamaha team has continued to evolve this, and it reads high resolution data. That's the magic behind getting the nuances here. And then what we've done is we've gone back into a recording studio, and I'm going to tell you about some of the fun places we went to record. So we did an album of Art Tatum, maybe the greatest jazz pianist in history. And when we recorded it, we went to the Shrine Auditorium, the original room he was in 1949. And we did also Art Tatum at the Hollywood Bowl with Gordon Goodwin's big band, and we got a couple Grammy nominations. It wasn't that fun. You see nobody sit at the piano, but you know, a huge applause at the end. We did a live show at the Apollo Theater for a week, and we've got an actor on stage, and he plays a friend of Art Tatum. He says, remember when Art Tatum played T for Two, and leans over, and Art Tatum plays T for Two, and everybody claps. In fact, my picture here is my favorite shot. The last day of the show, it's in Manhattan, right? So they come backstage and say, John, we got to hold the show. We got to hold the show. It's like, oh my God, it's so many dollars per hour because of union. and they said, I said, why? And I went out in front, and they had people lined up around the block to get in our show that afternoon. And you can see it's a total mix of, you know, dressed up, not so dressed up, and so on in the middle of summer. We also did an album of Rachmaninoff, My Dream. I can now sit in the room and hear Rachmaninoff play, and we've got Sony's best engineers to be able to help us with this. And so there's a little bit of pride for me on this one slide here. Imagine making the greatest piano recording in history, and your pianist is Rachmaninoff. We played with him at Carnegie Hall, and Ruth, my teacher, his student, played in the second half of this. So there's complete intermixing of Rachmaninoff playing and Ruth playing. We had a chance to bring our Steinway back to Steinway Hall, and we did an album with Josh Rebell. Josh Rebell is playing the violin along with